All right, so the business and community support and recovery package is the second phase of support as a result from COVID-19. And the approach was that council had wanted to provide a level of immediate support, which was very early on in the piece. And then after careful consideration of both state Commonwealth support packages, after talking with a number of local businesses, this second phase of the support was developed. And so there are a number of initiatives as part of the broader support package. It's just over $1.7 million. There is a community element arm and a business development arm. So in the community development arm, which there may be some crossovers to some of the not-for-profits or community groups, where there's a community grants program currently being developed, which will, the purpose of that is to, obviously during COVID, a lot of fundraising activities hasn't been permitted. So there will be an opportunity for groups, not-for-profits to access funding through that. As part of the remaining initiatives of the support package includes things like waiver of business fees with health registrations, waiver of planning permit application fees, additional support for business groups and the like. But today we're going to focus on the Latrobe City Small Business Grants Program. So I'll just quickly run through the program guidelines and then I'll hand over to Erin. So if we start off, the ultimate goal here is that we're supporting businesses that have been significantly impacted by COVID-19. So we've broken it up into 3 rounds. The first round will kick off on Monday, 3rd of August at 9 o'clock and close Sunday night, the 30th of August. And that way, that round, so it's open for 4 weeks. So if you go onto the website now, you won't actually be able to apply. You'll be able to have a look at the guidelines. And then on Monday morning, that application, you'll be able to begin the application. Having it in funding round options gives us a little bit of flexibility, making sure that we get it right. All applications will be done through Smarty Grants, so there'll be no applications accepted by email or hard copy. And if there's any issues or challenges with accessing through Smarty Grants, that's where our team come into it, and we're happy to work through with anyone on that. So who is eligible? The guidelines are really quite clear in that what we're aiming for is small businesses that have been impacted. And the reason was around effectiveness of the support on business. We understand that if a really large organisation was to receive a grant up to $5,000, the impact would be less than if it was a small business. So that's why we've put that cap in place. And so how we've defined the small business is that employs 10 or less full-time equivalent employees, or has an aggregate turnover of less than $1 million. So if you have 12 full-time equivalent employees, but you earn less than $1 million, then you will still be eligible, and vice versa with that. Full-time equivalent is simply a 38-hour week equals 1 full-time equivalent employee. So if you have 2 casuals that make up that, then that's considered 1 full-time equivalent. The next point is operate majority of business in one of the following sectors. And these are ones that the COVID lockdown was greatest impact on. But we also recognise that businesses outside of these main sectors may also be significantly impacted, and therefore we would, the onus would be back on the business to demonstrate that impact, but they would also be considered. So the sectors are accommodation providers, which is pretty self-explanatory, food and beverage services, arts and recreation, which includes gyms, personal training, beauty and other personal services, and then retail. And they're the 2 main eligibility criteria points. The rest is quite self-explanatory. We need to be a legally constituted entity to be able to provide evidence on the impact of COVID-19. If it requires any buildings or works, that is appropriate level of approval from council departments. And again, our team's happy to work with you if there's any questions or if you need to go through that process. That's what our team's here to help assist with. Free from debt from Latrobe City Council. Now, if businesses are currently applied under a hardship, financial hardship policy, that is taken into consideration. So just note that in the application, and we can work through that. Hold appropriate professional indemnity, public liability insurance, and obviously be based within Latrobe City. Who's not eligible? Again, quite self-explanatory. We are after small business, so government agencies and any organisation that may be eligible for the community grants program would be encouraged to go through that rather than this one. What will not be funded for the program? So the purpose of raising funds for other groups or charities. Projects for the primary purpose of raising funds for other organisations or individuals. So whilst the intent may be positive, it's not the intent of this program and it will not be supported. Investments that deliver a religious or political party message where the purpose is to advance the organisational religious beliefs, irrespective of what those beliefs or positions may be. Retrospective costs, so all the works need to be not have taken place to date. Obviously the payment of debts or loans, general expenses, so we're not looking to support utility bills, gas or electricity. We're not looking to support the purchase of land or non-commercial vehicles. Again, we're not looking to support the repair of facilities damaged by vandalism, fire, or other natural disasters. And then obviously the last one is around, we want to be backing something that's has positive benefits to our community. So obviously anything, any activities that engage with promotes discrimination, violence or antisocial behaviour will not be tolerated or it will not be supported. So I won't go through the conditions line by line. I encourage you applicants to read through that. If there's any questions, come back through to the business development team and we can work that on a specific question inquiry. So the process is quite straightforward for us. There's an internal panel. So at the end of the grants round, that internal panel will meet, assess the funding applications, score them against these 4 weighted criteria, and then make a recommendation to support that business. And the idea of this grants program, given the amount of individual grants, is to get the money out as soon as possible. So the assessment criteria is around demonstrating the impact of COVID-19 on the business. And again, the weighting's right there. So we're basically saying 30% of our assessment criteria will be based on that. What the application does in terms of new business opportunities, does it create additional job opportunities or retentions? What we're looking for is how can you, rather than business as usual, how can you create new opportunities? What are you doing differently? The third one is around demonstrated a clear business direction. And what we're really after here is to say, this investment is part of a broad plan, part of your business plan, that this was something that is wanting to happen for some time. So that question looks at as well. It's not just an opportunity because there's money available. It's something that will help grow the business. And finally, what's the community benefit of the specific activity. So if there's impacts, positive impacts within the industry, within Main Street, are you using local suppliers? All those sort of things come under that broad community definition. And so that's what we'll be assessing the applications on. And then the successful candidates will be notified. They will be required to sign a funding agreement. And then there's obviously an acquittal process at the end of the investment. And at the bottom, we've tried to clearly identify that if there's any questions, our team's here to help. Latrobe City Council, for as long as I've been, which is coming up to 7 years now, hasn't done a small business grants program. So we understand that this is kind of a new area, just given the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So if there's any questions on the process, if something's not working, or that's what our team's here for, to help work with you and obviously get the best outcome. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Erin, Erin's going to go through, well, how do you actually apply? What are the questions that we'll be asking? And go through from there. So Erin, did you want to share your screen? I've just got you on mute too, Erin, so you'll have to unmute yourself.
No worries. Thanks, Shannon. And thank you for everyone that is here today and watching the recording as well. So where I'd like to start is on Council's website. To find the information, what you can do is just click this banner here, and on the website it'll take you directly to that page. And if not, you can go home, business, and to support for business. Our grant is listed with a number of other projects and initiatives that we do to support businesses. So just go to small business grants here and it will take you to the small business grants page. Here you'll find not only a lot of the information that is within the guidelines, but also a copy of the guidelines that Shannon has just gone through. It's just here on this button here. If you click that, it will take you to that page. Also on that page, there is a space here for you to click the button to register for Council's business e-newsletter. Here we'll have updates about our grant and also other information. It's really important to be subscribed to that e-newsletter, so then you're not only informed of the opening and closing of grants, but also other information. Here you'll see, obviously just for round one, we have a button to apply. This takes you directly to Smarty Grants, the online application form, which Shannon mentioned earlier. And as we said, it is the only way that you can submit an application. We don't accept them via email or hard copy. So if you were to click that now, because the round hasn't opened and we aren't accepting applications until 9 AM on Monday, it would take you to this page just here. And it just explains a little bit around the process of applying through Smarty Grants, and also ways to navigate the program or the application form, saving a draft. So some people might start an application and then realise they need to go away and get some other information before they can continue. You can save a draft. So the way to do that is all described here on this page. And then also where to support it and what attachments you can also attach there. So there is restrictions to the size, as you can imagine. So all of that is just here for you to review before submitting an application. The next thing I'd like to run through, so when we can, when on Monday, when this becomes a live link to the application form, this is where you would go to submit. And it will take you directly to this. This is just a preview of the application form, but it does give you a really good overview. So what we'll explain today is every question, and also I might use an example for some of the questions, just to give you an idea of the information that we can pop in each part or attach. So when you see an asterisk, you'll realise that you might not be able to go to the next stage. It's because it is a required field. So we're asking for that information to be submitted before you can continue or hit submit. So We have here just the link to the website again that we've already shown you, but it is there, and so is our contact details for our business development team. Shannon has just gone through the eligibility in the grant guidelines, but it is mentioned here again, and that's actually the first question. So we do ask that you need to say yes, that you do agree to that eligibility before continuing with any other questions. So that's a required question there. The next part of the application form is the contact details. So for the person who is submitting the form and also for the business. So we ask here for the organisation name as well as the trading name, which in many cases can be different from the organisation name, as well as the primary address of the business, which for home-based businesses can be a home address. Otherwise, the commercial address would be placed just there. The postal address is also required. Below that's the website. So if you don't have a website and you are just using other forms of social media, you could put there, for example, a Facebook page if that's your only form of website. Then we have the specific contact details for the person who will be either applying or our best contact for this application. You'll notice that we have here below each question little hints just to help you in understanding what the question's asking. So the next few questions are very straightforward: position of the applicant within the business, primary contact number, secondary contact number, and also the email address. The next part starts to go into the information that we require for your application, which is the sector that best describes your business. These all align with the guidelines for the eligibility, but you may be one of those businesses that aren't within one of those sectors. So we'd ask that you just plot that in the text box. For some businesses, there might be food as well as accommodation, for example. So there is up to 2 choices if you do need to select more than one. The next part where we ask for your ABN, it will actually use the Abn Lookup. So what that will do is once you've entered your ABN, it will then take you to the Abn Lookup page where we just ask for you to ensure that the ABN is correct. So you select the ABN that is correct for your business name and just ensuring that it is for our location. So it's a way that we check that it is a Latrobe City business as well. So just to explain that, we're happy to answer any further questions around that if anyone gets stuck. Now, here we have the organisation's legal structure. We have had some questions as to whether or not sole traders can apply. Yes, you can. So we just ask that you select that there or note other if there's another form of ownership. We ask that you answer yes or no to trust, and then we note here your turnover. So it just helps guide us in other information we might be able to provide you as well. The next part is all around your number of employees, as well as the full-time equivalent staff that Shannon went through earlier. We have here a description there, so you can note down your total number of full-time equivalent staff, as well as the number of full-time, part-time or casual staff members that you have below. So this number is likely to be or can be different from the total number of all of these employees below. So the description is there, and then we ask that if you have no part-time employees, for example, you can just put a 0 because each one of these questions is required. The next part we go through is to the activity information. So the specific project or activity that you're seeking funding for. So a simple name or a title of the activity is just required there, plus your start date, so your anticipated start date for when you hope to do the activity, and an end date if it's something that will take, you know, an extended period of time. Otherwise, if it's something that's just very quickly, you could just enter the start date there, that's fine. Below that, a short summary just helps us to understand a little bit more about why you're wanting the funding for the activity. Later in the application form, you'll see a section on budget. So we're not necessarily wanting any financial figures there, but it is nice to understand why your business is seeking this funding and what it will mean for the business, what you'll be able to achieve. So that's a nice description would be really helpful for the assessment panel to understand what you'll be using the money for. And it just gives you an option to have a little bit more of a description rather than just the title. Below that, the next few questions we have relate directly to the assessment criteria that was mentioned in the grant guidelines. So here we have, just below the activity, we request a summary of how your business has been impacted by COVID-19. So here you can have a description. You can mention things such as the number of days or months the business, for example, may have been closed, any alterations to the staff, whether people may have been stood down or seeking job seeker. There's also an option to note any financial figures of income or other things. So you can describe how it's impacted your business, but just below that, directly under 15, question 15, we have a slot for you to attach information. So that could be financial information or other information there to support this, because it is that question that is weighted as 30% of the assessment criteria. So that's the first question that relates directly to that. The second is how your proposed activity will lead to new investment, job creation, or retention. So here we have a box there just for you to describe that. So it could be new jobs, it could be retaining existing jobs, and also, it might be that you're hiring. You'd then mention what capacity or the title. So that's that there you can describe. Happy to answer any further questions around that as well in the future. The next question, question 17, asks for you to provide an overview of the future business direction. This is where it directly relates to your business plan, if you have one, or just future goals. So here we have below that another attachment option for the supporting material, but it's important to explain where your business was heading and how your activity relates to your future goals within the business to help with growth and other things. The last one is the last question that relates to the assessment criteria, which is how Latrobe City, the community, will benefit from the specific activity. So there you can describe that, as Shannon mentioned in the grant guidelines as well. Below is whether or not there'll be any employment outcomes that directly relate to the activity. Here we ask you to note the quantity of full-time, part-time or casual positions. And if you like, you can note what role they will be within the business. The next question just asks how you've learnt about the grants program. We have a number of things here, so we ask that you just tick that, or if it's other, you can mention that in the text box. If you were referred from another business, you can note the business name or the person there as well. The next part we go through is the budget. So what we have here is the total amount requested from this fund, and then also the total activity cost. Sometimes it may be the same, but in other cases, if it's a larger activity, it might be that we'd be only funding part of the activity. Below that, we've asked for a breakdown in how the activity will be funded. So this is where we ask for what proportion of the activity you're requesting to be funded by our grant program. And then there might be other grants programs, cash reserves, bank finance, or other means that you'll be funding the remainder of the project or activity. Below that, we ask for the expenditure. So here that could be, for example, if you were to be applying for a website, there could be different components to the website. So it might be that You know, $1,500 is for photography, professional photography for the website, and then the website development costs or the upgrades is another component. So you can break those down if that's the case. But if it is just one quote and one task that somebody is doing, then that can be noted as just one line and ignore the other lines. Below that, these will be automatically calculated from the tables above. So the total income, total expenditure, and then there'll be all of that just directly drops down. You don't need to enter anything into those there. We then ask you to attach quotes or a quote just here. So it is an option to upload. If you have more than one quote, you can combine them into one document to attach. We do ask that a minimum of one quote is provided. So we don't need two quotes for the same activity. If you are obtaining multiple quotes, that's fantastic. But if we can just have one quote per component or per activity, then we can assess it against that. If you're wanting to change anything down the track, we can talk about updating application forms, but we will actually assess the quote that's submitted. And if you need to make changes down the track, that'll be a case-by-case inquiry. We then have an option to attach any further information. It is optional. Some people may not need to attach anything else, as there is an option to attach a business plan or other support material for the COVID information. So that's just an option to have any other additional information there. Below, we then ask that you certify to the best of your knowledge that the statements made within the application are true and correct, and that you understand that the applicant organisation is approved for the grant. So we just ask that you certify that you agree. Note the person who is agreeing to that, the position within the business, and the date. That is the end of the application there. So that, we hope, will help you in completing the application form. Our contact details are just on the top if you do need to ask any further questions after this information session. So please feel free to reach out to us.
Fantastic. Thanks, Erin. That's really good. Did you want to stop sharing your screen? We'll bring up the gallery view. Fantastic. And so, guys, we'll go into Q&A now. So for the questions, did you want to perhaps just raise your hand, and then I'll ask a question, and then you can ask the question. So is there any questions to start off with, guys?
You might need to unmute them as well.
Yeah, Jim.
Thanks, Shannon. That was really good. Really, really good. Thanks, guys. Can somebody help fill in the application? Like, do you need to, were you assisted with this application?
In short, yes, you can do that. But the certification of basically needs sign off by someone that's responsible for the organisation. So in short, yes, someone else can fill in the application, but the certification needs to be done by someone within the organisation as responsible.
Yeah, I had someone contact me say the accountant was doing it, but couldn't quite work that one out.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Is there any other questions? Yeah, Gina. You just have to put yourself off mute. Oh, there you are.
Thank you. Hello. I have two activities in mind. One is permitting. So because I don't yet have permits, they're being processed, but they're not approved as of yet. I'm just wondering, like, if I put in for that kind of activity and the permits are still in process, what happens in a situation like that?
Yeah, so it's probably something we could take offline, but okay. in terms of that, So if you were to submit an application and it was still pending either planning permit or health permit, that's fine. It just needs to be noted in the application, and then we would assess. And if it was deemed that you were successful, then it would be on condition that the relevant permits or were granted before commencement, and the release of the funds after that date. So that's how we would work it. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was thinking it might have been something like that. Otherwise, I've got a different, idea as well. But that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions, Robert?
How you going? There was a question that asked you need clear evidence to prove that you're COVID affected. What sort of evidence would that be?
So it could be a range of things. Simply, if we take a beauty salon, for example, obviously they legally weren't allowed to trade for that close down period. So the evidence would be that, that's the field that they operate in. The impact could be if you've on JobKeeper, for example, you could provide evidence that you're receiving JobKeeper payments. It could be financial information, so a letter from your tax accountant to state that your business has been impacted by X and it was signed off by that accountant. So there's a few different ways. We've tried to keep it broad so that you're not required to do one specific thing. If you're impacted on it, impacted by COVID, either through loss of sales, then we just need to work through, well, how can you demonstrate that that's been the case?
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Robert. Is there any other questions? Casey.
Hi Sharon, hi everyone, thanks for that. I have a couple of questions. One was with the quotes that you get from suppliers, if you were to apply for, say, an equipment grant. I spoke with Erin a little bit earlier this week. If possible, you want that on one quote for the different types of equipment, but if you can't get all of that from one supplier, can you then get quotes from a couple of different suppliers?
Yes, yeah, of course. So in the expenditure breakdown, we'd just like to note that there would be, equipment A from that person worth X amount, and then equipment B worth this amount, and then you can just combine those quotes or attach them separately. That's fine. That's no dramas at all.
Okay, cool, thanks. And the second question is, I guess, how much time we have to apply, because if the round is open for 4 weeks and we're sort of applying towards the end of the round, do you only assess all the applications at the end, like after the round closes, then you assess all the applications all at once, or do you sort of do them week by week?
Yeah, great question. So we've gone with rounds. So the idea is that we won't assess any applications until the rounds close. And then we might have 50 applications come in. We'll assess those 50 applications. It's a competitive round, and there's an allocated amount for each round. And then, so we'll take the top X amount. Say whether that's 20 or 30 applications. And then the remainder of those ones, there'll be an option to either resubmit for a following round or change your application for future rounds.
Okay, so you won't sort of hear back till after the close of the round if you've entered an application.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So you'll get notification. So I should make that clear that you'll get notification that the grant's been received, and if for whatever reason that you need to change your submission, you can. You just need to contact our team, and then we'll be able to work through with how that works. But it needs to be done before the end of the round closes.
Yeah. So we'll hear back from after the end of the round as to how successful applicants have been. Will there be 1 or 2 weeks before they hear about whether they've been successful?
Great question. The aim of this council's priorities is to get the money out. So we've been given that directive that we want to turn this around as quickly as we can. So from our end, our team will be working as hard as we can to assess all the applicants in a fair way, not jeopardising on quality. And then, so from us, our aim is to get it out as soon as we can.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
So I won't put a time on.
That's all right. No worries.
So we've got a couple of questions come through next. Thanks, Casey. So we've got Jeanette, then we'll go to Jim, and then we'll go to Chazelle. So Jeanette, do you want to? We've just got you on mute, so you just have to, then the bottom left-hand corner, if you unmute yourself.
Hi. I don't know if the question's already been asked. Sorry, I had to step away for a minute. Are sole traders who don't employ anybody, are we eligible for this? I am a sole trader and I'm just myself, nobody else.
In short, yes. You can still apply. Obviously, the grant in the assessment criteria talks around new investment, job creation or job retention. So if you're a sole trader, you need to think, well, how can you incorporate in your application what this grant will enable your business to do? So yes, you can apply.
And my second question is, in regards to evidence, are you actually looking for like a business proposal?
Evidence for what specific question?
Oh, sorry, for applying for the grant?
Yeah, so on a number of the applications, we ask for, there's an opportunity to provide supporting documents. For one of those around clear direction, business direction, there's an opportunity to upload a business plan. If you don't have a business plan, that's fine. You just need to articulate in the answer, in the response, what it will mean for your business.
Okay, thank you.
No worries at all. Jim.
Sorry, another question. Is the supplier paid with the grants, or does it go to the applicant and then on to the supplier?
Yeah, so we pay the applicant. So the funding agreements with the applicant, and then it's on the applicant to equip the grant process, which will come back into our grant agreement with the applicant.
Awesome. And can a project go over multiple rounds?
Yes, but do bear in mind that it is obviously a competitive process, so that would be a consideration. Obviously, we've got a limited amount of funds, and so we'll be looking at how can we maximise what we have. So that would be a consideration, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks, Jim. Chazelle.
There we go. I just had a question. So in regards to being unsuccessful, should we be unsuccessful, will there be any feedback available?
Yes, so the process, and this is a work in progress from our end, but we'll provide notification and then the opportunity to provide feedback. So obviously all our assessment criteria will be marked, so that feedback will have access to that. So if the business was unsuccessful, we'll notify them and say, if you would like further feedback or information as to why, please let us know. And if you get back to us saying, can you please provide feedback, I'm really interested in applying for potential future rounds, then we'd provide that feedback as to why.
Okay.
And it may simply be that it's a competitive process, and so we can only take the X amount at the top. And so we may come back and say, look, we encourage you to apply for a future round.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Giselle. Louise. We've just got you on mute, Louise, so you just have to unmute yourself down the bottom left. Yep.
Sorry. I missed the first part because I thought it was 12:30, so my apologies. Applying for grants through council, you need to be living in the Shire. My business, I'm just out, but most of my clients come from Latrobe.
So the business needs to be registered to a Latrobe address.
Okay.
Yep. So
Puts me out by about 2 to 3 kilometres.
Yeah.
But most of my clients will be coming from Latrobe Shire.
Louise, perhaps we take this one offline. And
Yep.
with the guidelines, they are guidelines. Yeah, we'll take this one offline. But the intention of the grant is to support Latrobe City businesses.
Yep.
And so that's, yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions? Robert?
Oh, okay. So the suppliers that you choose have to be within the Latrobe Council as well, is that right? Or
No, they don't, in short. But there is the assessment criteria regarding preference for local.
Yeah.
So from us, obviously, we're very keen to see as much locally procured goods as possible.
Yeah.
And so, but no, it doesn't. If there's a supplier that it's not available locally and that you need to go look elsewhere, or you've been doing work with them on an ongoing basis. So yeah, that will be considered. Yeah.
Sure.
Is there any other questions?
I just had a question.
Sorry, can I say something?
Yes. Is that Fiona?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
My husband and I have got two businesses within the Latrobe Valley. Does that mean we can only apply for one of the grants, or can we apply for both the businesses?
So you can apply for both the businesses as long as they meet those eligibility criteria. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No worries. And I think there was another one. Was that you, Jenny?
Yes, I just had a question regarding the applications. You said that you didn't assess them for 5 or 6 weeks, so you wouldn't have an assessment for at least 6 weeks.
So the round runs for 4 weeks.
Yes.
And so at the end of it finishes on a Sunday night, and then on the Monday we'll begin that assessment process.
So why wouldn't you accept the application and then process it straight away instead of waiting 4 weeks to process the applications?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the reason that we've done at the end of the round was because it's going to be on a competitive process. A lot of grants programs, have a lot, the money, they know that they've got multiple rounds, so they can spend more in the first round.
So it's the way you're dispersing the funds.
Yeah, yep.
Right.
So, and so for us, it's really important that every applicant, regardless of when they get it in, if it's on that round, is given the same opportunity if there was a first one as compared to the last one. And if you could imagine, at the start, we may be seeing different applications compared to the end. So the fairest way from our end was to assess them once the funding round was closed.
Okay. All right. Good. Thanks.
No worries. Thanks, Jenny. Now, was there any other questions from those who don't have any the cameras turned on?
Can I ask another question, please?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, Fiona, can you please repeat that one?
What date does the application, like, what date does this one start for the 4 weeks to get the grant in?
Yeah, Monday at 9 o'clock it begins, Monday the 3rd of August.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to bring up the date it ends.
30.
Sunday the 30th of August at 11:59.
All right, no. All right, it's happening night.
Yep.
Yep, no problem, thank you.
No worries. Was there any other questions, guys? I think that's it. It's really good. So, as I said, the business development team's here to help if there's any specific inquiries. Louise will make contact and chat about yours offline. For anyone else, the guidelines are there. The application process will begin on Monday morning. And if there's any questions throughout the process, call council. 1300 367 700. That's our general number. Ask to remember the business development team. Yeah, Erin, Christy, or one of the other guys could help out with your inquiry and work with you to get the application in. Other than that, guys, we'll finish up now. So I'd like to thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. Erin, thanks for your time. It was great chat. And yeah, good luck with your applications. And we hope to be receiving and funding some really exciting projects in the Valley coming up. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.